With that, I'd like to introduce to you Robert Manow, who is the Director of Product Marketing for Bomgar. Bomgar is the worldwide leader in secure appliance-based remote support solutions. The company's solutions enable organizations to improve IT support efficiency by securely accessing and managing virtually any system: Windows, Mac, Linux, BlackBerry, Android, the iPhone, iPad, and most versions of Windows Mobile, regardless of location. More than 5,500 companies worldwide have deployed Bomgar's enterprise-class solutions to rapidly transform their IT support functions and significantly improve operational efficiency and customer satisfaction while dramatically reducing costs. In 2010, Bomgar was named one of the fastest-growing technology companies in America by Deloitte, and we're happy to have Robert contribute to Thought Rock Weekly this week. So I'll turn it over to Robert and introduce Robert, let him introduce his concepts, as well as let you know that I might be coming back in and asking Robert some questions as well. Robert?
Okay, great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Rick, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this Thought Rock Breakthrough Series. Certainly playing a small part today in helping advance the knowledge of IT and support in the industry. As Rick indicated, I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Bomgar. My role here encompasses building, launching, and marketing the Bomgar solution. And I'm very happy to be here with you. If you're all looking at my picture, you could probably get a perspective that I'm not what you would call a millennial. Actually went to college with a typewriter, so I've been at this for about 20 years now. However, I am here today to talk about millennials, this new generation of folks coming into the workplace, and the attitudes and perceptions that they bring towards IT and support, and then facilitate a discussion as to whether or not the help desk is ready to support them. Some of the things I'm going to cover in the discussion today are millennials' attitudes towards support immediacy, how quickly they expect to get issues tackled and resolved, preferred communication channels, their comfort with collaboration, both inside and outside the organization, their mobility, and their work preferences. After we do that, we'll discuss the implications that this has on how IT remote support is delivered and consumed. So you might recognize these people. These are generally people that we refer to as millennials. They're also sometimes known as Generation Y in some circles. Millennials are basically anyone that's born in the 1980s and 1990s. They're defined less by their age, but more when they grew up. This group of individuals was born at the start of is really coming of age at the dawn of a new decade, a new century, and a new millennium. So hence their name as millennials. We certainly think about them a lot at Bomgar. As you can imagine, millennials are often those in their 20s in the workforce, or often those that are on the front lines using enterprise remote support solutions and helping both your employees and your customers resolve IT support issues. Conversely, they're oftentimes the very folks that you're sending out into the field as your sales force. They're the ones that you probably are early in their careers are more prone to put on the road and need access to those types of remote support solutions. So as I go through my presentation today, I really encourage you all to think about what roles the millennials are playing in your organization and how those roles will change over time and what the impact will be for your ability to support them. What I can say to you as a whole is that the millennials are bringing a lot of new expectations and challenges to IT departments as they enter the workforce, and that's what I'll be sharing with you today. So let's start with understanding millennials as a whole and the size of this group. Again, as I mentioned, they're born in the 1980s and the 1990s, primarily the children of baby boomers, those born post-World War II. And as you can see from the chart here, the baby boomers basically replicated themselves and then some. And just like boomers, in many ways, they really can't be ignored in the U.S. economy. Every stage of their life cycle, if you will impact business. And we believe, I believe, myself, and we believe at BombGuard that you're going to see that impact very quickly, and even now in IT support. And we'll have some data to show that bearing out. For those of us who are not millennials, I guess we're going to be off to greener pastures pretty soon, some of us sooner than others. And I think that's well demonstrated here in this chart. You can see in blue, I'm going to try to use my mouse pointer here, this blue line is, in this chart from the Concourse Institute, they refer to them as Generation Y, again also known as Millennials. You see an inflection point around 2005, 2010, where the full force of the Millennials are entering the workforce. And you see as we go through time over the next 20 to 30 years that they are increasingly becoming a larger part of the makeup of each of our organizations today and into the future. I guess one of the things that I think about when I see this chart is that if you think about the history of business, there's been a lot of firms that have been able to capitalize on the changing attitudes and perceptions of each generation, and those have been the ones that have been kind of carried forward and been successful in each of their industries. And I think that we risk not keeping an eye on this new generation at our own peril to our organization, not just with IT support, but in the way that we deliver services and products. So if you think about this generation, you're going to have to sell to them, and you're going to have to recruit to them in ways that are unique and meaningful to this group. And more specific to us in IT support, you're going to have to support them. So what I'm going to cover again today is really some interesting data that we've been able to uncover at BombGuard around expectations for immediacy, use of many and new communication channels, really the idea of channel choice, the fact that they're highly self-sufficient when it comes to technology use, incredibly comfortable with tech-based collaboration, and of course they're highly mobile. So who are they? Millennials have been described as really the first digital natives. As digital natives, they're really kind of the first Facebook and or Google generation. Technology has really shaped just about all their experiences to such an extent that you think about it seems to be a natural outgrowth that they'd be a logical choice in your IT support organization to ask for technology advice. And indeed, as a generation, if you look at this research from the Pew Research Center, they're really a generation that defines themselves through their use of technology. If you could compare and contrast this to some previous generations, particularly as you go back in time and look at boomers who are defining themselves more by their work ethic, and those earlier by significant economic hardship and even wartime experiences as well. I like to use this example of the OnStar service in modern cars to really demonstrate the experiences in the consumer world that are influencing millennials' view of IT support. Now, if you think about OnStar, if you've ever had an experience with that, this is kind of how millennials have grown up with their expectation of immediacy when it comes to receiving support. Again, if you've had some experience with OnStar, you literally push a magic button, and within 7 seconds, you're more or less getting immediate access to assistance. It's smart in that it recognizes who you are, regardless of location, wherever your car might be located, and it's collaborative. You can immediately share your issue with the attendant in the OnStar system. So again, this is tremendously impacting technology expectations and the expectations of support as this new millennial generation of 20-somethings is entering the workforce. So in my experience and in the research that we've done, we've really seen three themes that that are supporting this generation that's defining itself by technology. One, the first, is digital natives. They're really gravitating to and easily navigating the latest and best technology. In fact, they really use technology as their lens to view the world. And I think really kind of hard-hitting and getting closer to aspects of how to support them, they're a generation that's expecting a rapid response in literally thousands of a second. They more or less have a world of knowledge at their fingertips, and they're self-sufficient and they're ready to go get it. So if you think about Google, Google has always been there for them more or less in their adult lives, and they bring those attitudes and those expectations into all aspects of their support experience.
Robert, a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Ray.
So just because it strikes me when you bring up Google here, and when I think of the millennials, would you say then, from a standpoint of IT support, are they more happy with the self-serve option? Is as long as they can have access to it, are they more comfortable with self-serve, or do you think they're still looking for the additional help from a support perspective, or are they really pushing the self-serve piece?
Yeah, that's a great question. So whether or not they're using self-serve, very much so. It's interesting. You got me with the word pushing. I think it's almost a matter, going back to my OnStar example, it's a matter of expectations. They expect to be able to self-serve and to help themselves, and it's based on their experiences, and they're bringing that mindset into the organization. So I would say yes, that it is a push, but it may not be overt as far as voicing it, and more of just an expectation that it's there for them, and the implication that might have for the availability of self-help tools for the support organization.
And my last question on that is just in line with the same thing. And I don't know if any of the research on the technically savvy millennials, would you say again, are they technically savvy from a perspective of they love technology for its uses, or would you say they are technically savvy to a point where a high percentage of them do consider themselves technical and want that self-service because they are technical? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but I don't know if you see where I'm going with that. I mean, is it that they are enamored with technology and comfortable with the use of technology, but are they actually, as a group, that much more technically savvy?
Yeah, that's a great question. It may not necessarily be, some of the research that we've done, it wasn't necessarily technical skill per se. It was more of the comfort of using technology as a means to an end. So, but we have found that, and I'm going to get to this in some of the research, that millennials are very interested in, more so as a group, in understanding how something is resolved. So using technology and then understanding how something is resolved. So instead of just taking it at face value, understanding under the covers how something is resolved. And that again points to the collaborative nature of their personalities and their expectations that they bring to the support organization.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Please keep them coming. So that actually dovetails very well into the idea of community. Just the idea of Facebook here. You know, with millennials, they really have one open face to the world, regardless of situation or context. And again, kind of building on the question that Rick posed from the group, you know, they're not afraid to ask questions in their community, to collaborate and get the responses they need on any topic. And again, you know, let's think about what that might mean from a support organization standpoint of a group of people coming into the organization that's comfortable collaborating and putting their ideas and their questions out there. And again, I have some additional research that kind of backs up that notion. But the implication that it's going to have for us in the support industry is tremendous.
And Robert, would you say that in your research, now that you're on the social media kind of piece and the collaboration piece, is there any of the research talk about security threats from the use of social media? I mean, again, I know from in our business we hear that so much, that one of the number one concerns that organizations have, rightly or wrongly, is that there are just so much more enhanced security threats when we start talking about incorporating some of these facets into the business. What's your perspective? What does the research say on that?
Yeah, that is a great question. So the use of social media, I guess the outlying case would be somebody putting proprietary information on a social network and exposing and risking security to the organization. We have found that is a risk. What I can say is I often refer to it as the irreverency factor. You would think that maybe a younger generation is somewhat irreverent to the policies, and what I found in some research that we fielded is there is some evidence to support that, but it's not as great as you would think. Those that are in the organization, the understanding and the adherence to IT security policies, it was pretty good as far as a percentage, and even as compared to other generations. But the mindset of the IT leadership was there seemed to be a gap of an irreverency gap there, where the expectation was actually greater than what actually was occurring with the group. So I found that to be refreshing, that this younger set of people that was coming into the IT support was respectful of policies for the most part. Certainly not 100%. That risk is there, but not as bad as expected.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. So when you start putting all these pieces together, you see that technology is really an accelerator, and it's always been there in the lives of these people. Again, I go back to my analogy of taking my typewriter to college back in the 1980s. This is a group that's used technology. In contrast, they've used technology to resolve problems in every aspect of their lives, and they bring those expectations into the workforce. I like to call it digital bypass. This is a fun quote. I'm going to basically read it to you. I texted you, and you didn't text back. So I checked your Facebook status, and you weren't on a plane, and you weren't on IM. So I called your cell, but you didn't answer. So I went ahead and sent the quote. So, having a little bit of fun there, hypothetical response. But if you think about this and kind of absorb this type of mindset, there's a lot of themes that are coming out here. The desire for immediacy and the real-time aspect of IT support response, their incredible self-sufficiency in tech-based problem solving, flexible communication and channel choice, and ease and comfort in collaboration, again, that Facebook generation, and an incredible use of mobile solutions and devices. So again, we've had some fun, demographically getting to know this group. But, let's turn the corner a little bit and talk more about, what does that look like as far as providing outstanding enterprise remote support to this generation. I like to think of support as a lens through which everything in your IT shop is judged. An example of that, I put a quote with permission from a BombGuard customer, a CIO of Great Wide Logistics, and I think it really sums it up well. He says, support is the first contact of the business environment to technology, and if it doesn't provide a positive experience, then it becomes restricted to that CIO's ability to be effective in a lot of other ways. And, I'd say, with the millennials and the expectations that they're bringing into the workforce, more so than ever. Now, I've mentioned some of the research that we've done, and I'm about to share with you some sneak peeks of that research. What we've done at BombGuard recently is we've surveyed 400 millennials on their attitudes and expectations of IT support. And then we've also surveyed 200 IT leaders, from CIOs down to directors of IT, in leading companies throughout North America. And that research is going to be published later this month in collaboration with GigaOM. GigaOM, if you're not familiar, GigaOM Pro is an IT consulting and research firm. And we're going to make this available in a series of white papers on this topic of supporting millennials, supporting the millennial generation with IT and technical support. So I'm going to share with you some of those findings now that I think could be helpful in advance to your organization, to those of you on the phone today. So I've been talking a lot about the high expectations of immediate support response. And what we've done here is we've segmented out those in their 20s between those that are under 24 years old and those that are over 24 years old. So roughly a group of people that are college, early post-college, and then those that have maybe matriculated into the workforce and have been there a longer period of time. And what you can see here clearly is all those expectations that I've been talking about, the OnStar example, the Google generation, it's really kind of trickling into expectations of support in the organization. So a majority, about almost 60% here, is expecting some type of IT support response in 10 minutes or less. And if you start to look at it, virtually all of them are expecting a response in 30 minutes or less. And as you look at those that are younger, and you think about the trends and the size of this generation, nearly 80 million coming into the workforce, and their expectations of support, this is pretty tremendous as to the impact of those expectations. You know, in our research, you know, we uncovered that, you know, from an SLA perspective, you know, that 10-minute threshold is generally not something that's readily apparent in an SLA. So, you know, it starts to make you think about, you know, how are you going to restructure or evolve your support to meet these expectations. You know, in some ways, maybe you can help shape these expectations, you know, with policies that are in place. But the tide is certainly rising as far as, you know, expectations. And I think there's going to be some type of middle ground to, you know, evolve your support organization to meet these, you know, tough criteria for immediate response. Continuing on, we asked millennials what their first source for technical support was. And startingly, what we saw here is 61% don't go to their company first for technical support. So if you think about the processes that you might have in place, the policies, the infrastructure, here you have a group of people who are maybe not necessarily going to those initially. Now, there could certainly be some education here to improve the knowledge that those tools are available. But you see here, they're equally as comfortable to asking a colleague or a friend. Here's that self-sufficiency angle. They're Googling the problems themselves. Again, that idea of posting something outside the company, not as much as certainly I expected of this generation, but certainly doing that from time to time, particularly those that are just out of school. You know, despite the requirements for immediacy, what we've discovered from our research is that nearly 6 in 10 of millennials are not choosing telephone as their first choice for support, and 72% prefer something other than email. So again, the implications for how we deliver support in the industry, you know, the prevalence of telephone-based support and email support, this group of people coming into the workforce are increasingly using other tools such as chat, online forums, text-based messaging, and again, to a lesser extent, company social networks, Facebook and Twitter. So company social networks could be things like Yammer and Chatter. I think what we found is a certain interest in using some of those tools, but not as much of an adoption by companies to put them in place yet when it comes to, you know, tools like Yammer and Chatter in the organization.
And Robert, a quick question. So for those companies and those organizations where you have seen them adopt chat and collaborative remote support solutions, have you seen or can you talk to any type of call escalation rate changes? Because I think that obviously would have some business value to people on the line.
Yeah, so you think about online options or telephone-based options. If you switch to some of these other forums such as chat, it's generally quite positive. Some of the research that we've seen is that call escalation rates could drop up to 30%, and I think a lot of that has to do with the ability with chat to bring in other support representatives. So particularly, with Tier 1 support, you might have a junior representative that goes over a threshold. Let's say that's 5 or 10 minutes. There's a lot of tools out there now, particularly chat-based tools, where that support representative could bring in someone else pretty quickly into a session and help resolve that issue and bring those call escalation rates down. So there's certainly a trend towards that, and there are a lot of tools out there that facilitate the ability to meet that expectation.
And I'm assuming in a chat support situation as well, you do some number crunching on the fact that the support rep potentially is supporting multiple chats simultaneously, and with the ability to do so and do it quite effectively.
Oh, absolutely. If you think about it, you can certainly put folks on hold with support. We've all been there on both sides of the phone, undoubtedly, in the industry. But what we see with chat-based solutions, and that you could easily handle 3, 4, 5 solutions, chat sessions simultaneously, particularly with some degree of automation of initial greeting and some scripting, so you could get some productivity improvements as well. And again, there are a lot of tools that facilitate that, and it certainly ties itself into the comfort and the manner of which this millennial generation is expecting to interact with your support organization.
And one other question I'm going to ask you right now, because it's relative to the slide you've got up in a couple of the past slides, based on the fact that you've grouped people into under 24 and over 24. Jason just asks, is there a further breakdown of people who are over 35? And there must be a reason believing that over 35 there's some significant differences in how people act and behave as well. Is there any of this research, did it break it out further by age, or was it just kind of grouped in these two categories?
Yeah, that's a great question. The attitudes and usage of technology, we focused on generally those between 20 and 30 years old. So these type of stats we have available more for those groups. We do have we did group IT leaders, which can be in that mid-30s range, but we don't have these breakouts. We really kind of focused on those that are in their 20s in this research. So that's what we currently have available, and I could certainly make that available to those in the audience.
Great, thank you.
So, we wanted to get a handle on what else millennials did besides contacting technical support directly when they had a technical issue with their computer or smartphone or tablet. So what we did is we gave them a list of potential alternatives, and basically we asked them how many times they'd used any of them in the last 6 months for support. And as you can see here from the chart, the vast majority of millennials said they had used Google to search for a solution at least once, and 17% had done it more than 5 times. So again, a very highly self-sufficient group. Maybe less pushing those types of solutions, but more of just expecting to do that. I think using company self-help, great for us in the industry to put out those self-help support tools. As a generation, they're willing to self-medicate more and self-resolve issues. I think that that's very positive. They're also comfortable of, let's say they're having a problem with a particular piece of software, they'll contact the vendor directly. We saw that nearly half of them will take that upon themselves to do that. And then you see, posting to online forums that are set up by your company or independently, and then the use of social networks. And again, as we trended towards younger millennials, those under 24, we saw significant differences in those coming out of school. And we've had a lot of discussions, even here at BOMGAR about how much of that is, I guess, people being maybe indoctrinated or having expectations that are maybe shaped or changed by the company versus bringing their own expectations into the organization. And I have to say it's probably a little bit of both. But again, the tide is definitely rising as far as the expectations for non-phone and non-email based support, the ability to self-help, and the ability to collaborate outside of traditional channels. And those all point to changes that are occurring in their perceptions and in the perceptions of your workforce, and our ability as a support industry to adapt to them.
Hey, Robert, just want to do a quick time check because I think we're good on time here. But as we look kind of forward in terms of the slides, are we still good for time? So just want to make sure we leave time for questions at the end as well.
Absolutely, Rick. I think we're going to be just fine. I'm just going to go through one or two more points from the research and then discuss some of the implications for the support organization from these findings.
Right on. Great. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. So this chart here really illustrates some interesting patterns. I think we touched on it earlier with one of our questions. We asked millennials why, when they're faced with a problem, they don't immediately call tech support. They said it's partly for speed reasons and partly because of Google and social networks are so ingrained in their life. You see here some interesting stats about tech support taking too long. This idea of getting a ticket and maybe having to wait for a response, as opposed to maybe quickly getting some self-help, opening up a chat session, and starting to collaborate with level 1 tech support, maybe being assisted by additional levels of tech support or even third-party subject matter experts, to resolve an issue. So again, some interesting stats that really kind of indicate that millennials want to learn about the technology that they're using and work collaboratively to help solve problems. And here, one of the last slides from the research, wanted to share with you millennials' interest in learning about and troubleshooting technology. Very much a group of people and a large group of people who's interested in being involved and engaged in resolving issues. And again, they'll go to self-help and try to resolve it themselves, but they're equally as comfortable in understanding how that resolution occurred. So if they're engaging with your support organization, they want to be hands-on. They want to see what's happening. So if you think about the support tools that you use, to the extent that you could get them involved with your support technicians and your representatives in collaborating on the issue, this is something that caters well to the needs of the millennial generation. So mobile device use at work, 40% of millennials use a mobile device on a weekly basis, and that increases to 50% for younger millennials. I don't know about all you on the phone. I was expecting this to be a little higher, but what we discovered is that millennials as a group are not always being issued corporate phones, and this could basically be at their level of seniority in some organizations. But regardless, the use is still pretty compelling. Interestingly, I think as a group, they're looking to get access to corporate email and calendaring. And what we found from our research is that IT support organizations generally have them well covered in these regards. But you see increasingly as a group they're interested in doing more with their smartphones and their mobile devices, including reading and working on documents, doing research, and accessing company systems. From an after-hours perspective, 50% of them are already working outside of traditional business hours. They're very comfortable with this work-life mashup. And you'll see here that, again, the implications for how we deliver support in the industry definitely resonate as far as what's going on with this generation. They're very comfortable. I mean, even at a young age, they're already working routinely outside the organization. And as they gain responsibility over time, I think these expectations are going to grow. So the idea of the 24/7 follow-the-sun support model and the tools available for them to work collaboratively outside of traditional working hours is critical. So I'm going to turn the corner here, and given all these expectations and experiences that we've reviewed so far, start thinking about what is it going to take to make support work for this generation. So again, just citing some research here, this is sort of how things are done now. Very phone-based, email-based, and these are millennials' expectations of the future. With regards to online support. So things are obviously changing. And the best way that I like to kind of demonstrate this is by using the example of a supply chain and relating that back to the service organization. So I'm going to start here with an example of picking a product online. So let's say that we, as an end consumer, we choose to purchase an iPad online. What this does is it precipitates actions within a supply chain. So you begin off by really being able to purchase anywhere online a product. It gets assembled, it gets transported and delivered to your organization. The thing about a supply chain is there's a single point of contact. It's highly collaborative. There are agents working at every step in the process to deliver the final result. It's highly visible and very auditable, and it's extremely efficient. So if you think about that in the context of the service chain, how would that look if we set up something similar? So let's start with first-line support representatives. They could instantly receive in real time millennials' requests for assistance from a host of channel options. That could be an online portal. It could be on the phone, but more likely it could be a chat-based session, or text, or any other manner of social network. And they could do that from virtually any platform. And this would really satisfy the millennials' needs for immediacy and channel choice. Secondly, you'll need a solution that provides a secure and collaborative option to bring in multiple tiers of individuals within your organization and even trusted third-party individuals to all collaborate and swarm around a support issue. So you can have the millennial being supported and multiple individuals collaborating seamlessly in some type of online solution to rapidly resolve the issue. And this would just be another example of how it would look in your organizational structure. You'd have a customer incident that would come through your company, and you're facilitating that collaboration through tiers of your organization, through Tier 1, Tier 2, and all the way through subject matter experts that may be outside the organization. So you really want to seek out solutions that allow you to have multi-rep collaboration, the ability to chat with another support technician in and out of session, the ability to bring them into a session on request, or even do it programmatically to collaborate and collaboratively resolve an IT issue in real time. And you want to be sure that you could do that basically from any platform and to any platform. You want to look for a solution that has an interdepartmental aspect to it. So the ability to add and centrally manage tiers of support technicians. And you want to be able to do that securely. So you're going to look for, LDAP authentication, radius multi-factor authentication, and you want to extend that not only towards support technicians within your organization, but again, even outside your organization to companies that you may be collaborating with, intercompany collaboration to resolve support issues for millennials. So by structuring your IT support organization to handle real-time and collaborative remote support, you should be able to keep your shop in sync with the millennials' expectations and the types of attitudes and experiences that they're bringing into the workforce. So I really encourage you on the phone to, to get ready and think about, is your organization, ready to target and keep millennials satisfied from an IT support perspective. I wanted to share with you, prior to ending, just an example in the university setting. And again, these would be the younger millennials, those in their early 20s. And this does happen to be an example from one example from Baumgar that I am going to share with you. So Central Michigan University is an institution that has 110 support reps, and they were supporting 5,000 staff and faculty, as well as 25,000 students. And their problem was they were growing increasingly geographically dispersed, particularly with distance learning. They needed cross-platform capabilities and also some type of online forum and click-to-chat options. And these were options that were really being requested of their millennial user base, overwhelmingly, in their early to mid-20s in their student body. They looked at a lot of vendors, and they ultimately ended up going with Baumgar. But there are other vendors that could satisfy this need as well. What they did is they moved to a chat-based solution. And what you can see here is the call volume on their support organization more or less migrated almost completely to chat-based communications, particularly within the student body. And what CMU saw was a dramatic decrease in support call volumes, higher first call resolution rates, and generally overall better end-user satisfaction from their millennial user base. In fact, their time to resolution rates were cut in half within a few months. So I just wanted to share this with you because I thought it was particularly relevant as it pertains to the millennials' use of IT support in the university setting.
Hey, Robert, as you flipped to that kind of last slide with your contact information, I've got another question here. If you go back to the need for collaboration slide, that has it's kind of a different it's a different model from what a lot of organizations are adopting. I mean, I think some are going this way, but can you talk a little bit to how do I frame this question? What are the challenges from a metrics and costing and business ROI on this structure? Because it's very different from the traditional ticket handoff from one agent to the next from an escalation procedure versus team collaboration to get, especially in a chat, from a chat perspective, that one chat interaction may have 3 or 4 resources involved in solving the problem. Can you talk to anything around that in terms of what organizations are doing differently to think about that model a little bit differently? And really, I'm thinking it from a costing and resourcing perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that organizations are generally finding that they're getting increased productivity from bringing in or other parties into a chat session. So they're finding actually cost decreases as opposed to cost increases. Through chat, I mean, you could kind of quickly vet an issue and move it to the right representative. So you're generally spending less time from an upfront call handling perspective, and you're getting the issue in front of the right person quicker. So productivity is generally increasing. We also found with chat-based models that there's an incredible ability to there's this idea of swarming around an issue. So you could quickly bring in the right person much easier through these chat-based models. So your handling times are going down, your escalation rates are going down, and you're generally trending towards lower costs as opposed to higher costs by facilitating this sort of interperson as well as interdepartment collaboration.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, if you can flip through to that last slide, we're just at 12:48 now. Great content. So flip through that last slide. I know that there's oftentimes questions come up post these sessions, and I think I just want to make sure everyone's very familiar with Robert's contact information. So Robert's just going to leave that on the screen just for a few moments here. And in doing so, while Robert leaves that up, I just wanted to also say, Robert, thank you very much. Great content, definitely leading edge research in terms of information and things that organizations need to think about from a trends and support. Robert has his email address and his phone number here, so if there's anybody that wants to reach out further to understand more on any of the research that Robert talked to, or also any of the how BOMGAR is addressing some of these challenges in the workplace, please feel free to reach out directly to Robert either through that phone or through Robert's email, and that would be fantastic. So Robert, if you can, I think they've got that. If you can now flip to the last slide, because there's another way that just in case things come through the ThoughtRock team, if anything does come to us directly as well, we'll make sure that Robert gets those questions directly. And again, for those of you that have ideas for future content, please feel free to contact us at any one of those three ways. Follow us on Twitter. Stay in touch with us in terms of new things that are being posted to ThoughtRock weekly, as well as some of the events that are upcoming. I know we are going to be at Fusion in the fall, so hopefully we'll see some folks there in Washington. And lots of exciting things happening in the ThoughtRock community in terms of the unlimited education that we're trying to bring to the IT service management community. So again, Robert, thank you very much. I just wanted to bring everyone their attention to next week. Again, we have Graham Furness coming back by popular demand, and he's got 4 things that he's going to make sure that you walk away with next week. One is how to learn how to define IT services, understand the structure of an IT service, understand the relationships of an IT service, and understand how to manage an IT service. So please, we hope that you do come back and join us again next week, or pass it along to a colleague. And again, we highly recommend you stay in touch with us through our newsletter communications as well as the ThoughtRock Live site, and we appreciate everybody for attending again today, and hopefully we see you back again at future ThoughtRock Lives. So again, Robert, I want to say thank you very much. Any passing last comments that you wanted to make to the group?
Yes, I just wanted to express my thanks to you, Rick, and to the ThoughtRock Breakthrough Series. It's really an honor to have the chance to speak with you all today, and I would encourage you to please do feel free to reach out to me. You're certainly welcome to get copies of the white paper and the research that I've cited, and I look forward to keeping in touch with any and everyone that wishes to do so. So thank you very much, and keep an eye on those millennials, because they're coming through the front door of your organization more and more every day.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Robert. And we'll leave this contact information up for a few more minutes as we close out the session. And Robert just tweaked my memory here on one thing I didn't say, is that this presentation, this whole webinar, not only the slides but also the audio, will be available in ThoughtRock within 24 hours. And I believe also you'll probably find it somewhere else. I know BOMGAR will probably have it posted in a few other sites. So this will be available for future reference. And again, thank you very much, Robert, and hopefully we see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.